Everyone to the Midas Plus Substack Live. I'm Ken Harbaugh, and today I'm coming to you from Ukraine, so bear with us if the connection lags. We usually, as you know, spend Monday mornings here with Scott McFarland for the DC debrief, but in recognition of Memorial Day, we have got a special guest. I'll introduce him in a second, though I suspect most of you already know who I'm talking about there on the left side of the screen. And make sure to click the Chiron and subscribe to his Substack. But I want to take a minute to just reflect on Memorial Day, especially this year. It historically is the one day a year we're supposed to pause and reflect on the sacrifices of those who have given, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, the last full measure to the nation. I think about the friends I'll never see again. To be honest, I think mostly about their families. But in the moment we're living in right now, with a war that never should have been started and still hasn't been explained to the American people, we, as veterans especially, owe a special duty to those who have borne the burden, because we're not going to get anything other than platitudes, I fear, from this administration. They've spent the last year hollowing out the institutions that serve veterans, they cut benefits, they politicize the military, and they treat troops as props when it's convenient and afterthoughts when it's not. So today we're going to take stock. We'll honor the fallen. We will acknowledge those currently on watch who are carrying a burden most Americans will never fully understand. And I'm just so grateful to have someone with me today who understands all of this viscerally. Bobby Jones is a former Navy commander. He's the past president of Veterans for Responsible Leadership, still very involved in that organization. And he holds down the fort every Friday on the Midas Touch Network, where he hosts the Ken Harbaugh Show. Bobby, I'm so glad you're here. What do you think about when you wake up in the morning on Memorial Day? What are the first thoughts that come into your head?
Well, first of all, Ken, thanks for having me and stay safe with your travels. To be completely honest, the first thing I think of, I just can't wrap my mind around why people say Happy Memorial Day. I
Mhm.
I don't I don't get it. And the reason I say that is because, don't get me wrong, Memorial Day has morphed into this thing where people can get together, cookouts, etc. And that's good. That's happy. But the origin of the day, the reason for the day is because you take time to recognize the sacrifices of people who are basically letting you have that happen. You're in Ukraine right now, right? And they would love to celebrate holidays like they normally would, but they can't.
Yeah.
They can't. They're still there though, because of the unbelievable sacrifices that their armed service have done in these last 4 years. They're supposed to be gone 4 weeks into that war, and they're still here 4 years later. There's something to be said about the fortitude that people defending others bring to the table. And in America, we're talking about over 1.3 million, going back to the Revolutionary War, have made the ultimate sacrifice. 1.3 million. And I cannot tell you how wide the background of these people are, from humble beginnings to the richest that we've had, all unified in this thought of letting America find its own self-determination. And right now, we're dealing with a group of people at the very top who's supposed to lead in our 250th year of this experiment, who do not give a damn about the sacrifices of these people. They care more about power. They give platitudes that sound like a 1980s action flick and mistake that for leadership and sacrifice. Section 60 of Arlington, where the newest number of those who've made the ultimate sacrifice, um, they walk over there and they say things that is disrespectful to everybody in the section. They've
Yeah.
done that. And I cannot stop thinking about people that I served with, that I played ball with at Annapolis, that not only willingly gave their lives, but like you mentioned, the families left behind to deal with the loss.
Mm.
That is a hole that will never be filled. And the question I need to ask Americans who are sitting here about to go do their cookouts is, was their sacrifice in vain? If you're tolerating what you're seeing now, I don't give a damn about your political bent, this, that, and the other, but the fundamental institutions that were supposed to make us different than everybody else are getting ripped apart. If you're cool with that, then how do you justify their sacrifice? That's all I'm asking. I just,
Yeah.
there's an anger that I have right now, to be honest, Ken, an anger that those limestone rows in Arlington did all of this for a guy that did not have the testicular fortitude to put on the uniform when called to
Yeah.
rip it all apart. That's what I'm feeling this morning.
Yeah. And that sacrifice is ongoing. That's what gets me is that we have a wartime commander in chief. I mean, we've got a guy in charge who seemed to relish the thought of being a wartime commander in chief. If ever there was a time to rise to the occasion, to fill the shoes of the people before you who set such an example, like Abraham Lincoln, whose quote is inscribed above every VA, to be in that position and then diminish the sacrifice of the 13 war dead as he did on the tarmac just
Right.
a few days ago. I understand he's going to be laying a wreath at Arlington, same place he held a campaign rally for all intents and purposes with
Mhm.
Gold Star families
Yes.
during the last campaign. There, I can't think of another duty in the office of the presidency more sacred than that of commanding troops, sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines during wartime. And even now, this president cannot get it right. He cannot stop putting himself at the center of every conversation, and it is so exacerbated by the people he has surrounded himself with. I would love your thoughts on Hegseth. You're an academy guy, Naval Academy, granted. We'll barely. Okay, that's an inside joke.
Yeah.
uh, we'll for, we'll forgive we'll forgive you for that. As I bring up this next story about the West Point graduation, which
Yeah.
Hegseth just
Yeah.
gave a speech at. I'm going to ask you to comment on West Pointers, but how do you think they were feeling when the Secretary of Defense got up there, thumped the Bible? And look, I know you're a Christian. I grew up Christian, and there are plenty of God fearing, faithful Christians in the military. But a
Mm.
speech, a commencement speech at the academy to the
Yeah.
entire assembled corps of
Yeah.
cadets, I think that's what
Yep.
they call them there,
Yep.
is not the place to invoke Charlie Kirk
Oh my
and
God.
and
Le-
the Christian
Oof.
Bible. All
Man,
right, let her
I
rip,
got
Bobby.
I got so many thoughts on this. So let me be very clear. Any kid that was sitting there, any cadet that was getting ready to get commissioned had survived a rigorous 4 and in some cases 5 years that they gave up the prime of their lives to deal with. And being an Annapolis graduate, the dead last in my class, 2001. I know what it's like to sit in that seat. In our case, it was President Bush, George W. Bush, who told us that we don't know what's in front of you, but we know we will
Mm,
support you no matter what that is. He
yeah.
did not talk about politics. He did not even talk about himself, with the exception that he talked about he graduated pretty low at Yale. But other than that, he made it about us because here's the deal. That moment for those cadets, it's the only time in their entire career where they will basically be celebrated because the rest of their career as leaders is not supposed to be about you. And
Yeah.
this circus clown got in front of them and number one implied that 40% of that class shouldn't even be there because 40% of that class is either minority or female. So almost half that class, he said, shouldn't be there, even though when he had the opportunity to attend West Point, he did not have the integrity to go because he did not want to be hemmed up. So he went to Princeton instead. That's number one. Number two, Charlie Kirk, any religious imagery should have never been brought up because guess what? You have non Christians there. You have Jews there. You have atheists there. They did not go to West Point to join the Fifth Crusade,
Yeah.
unlike what he's thinking. Okay. But most importantly, he fought a culture war with those people as the backdrop, when he can't win the actual war that he
That's a great
goddamn
point.
started. Do you understand? So just like in front of Congress, when they call him out, he pivots to cultural war things. Meanwhile, we have expended over 50% of our ammunition. We have watched 13 other service members added to that 1.3 million that I talked about. And what do we get for it? A closed straight, the world hating us, and everybody questioning his ability to competently lead America's military. And you got the nerve and the outright audacity to make this about you. I was so livid watching the speech. I just kept thinking, what a fake ass leader this guy wants to be. He is a drunk. He has no goddamn moral integrity, evidence in the three wives, the adultery, the wife beating, all of that. And he's got the nerve to tell a kid that may be black from Atlanta that's at West Point, you shouldn't be here. Are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? Okay? And mind you, when Bush talked to us, I got commissioned 25 years ago today, May 25th, 2001. We didn't know that 109 days later, we would be fighting the nation's longest war. We didn't. And with all the political machinations that happened over the 2 decades that we went and we fought, the one thing that I was sure of, even if they made mistakes in strategy, is that they gave a damn about the sacrifices.
Yeah.
I have heard the commander in chief sit there and say he doesn't care about America's and the cost that this war is putting on them, poor people that voted for him. He doesn't care about, the captured service members, the injured service members. He don't want to see them in front of him. He doesn't like to see amputees. He doesn't want to support prisoners of wars because he saw them as losers while he wrote about dodging STDs in New York at the same time at Vietnam. I'm sitting here listening to the top two people of our military tell others that they're badasses just because they say shit. Meanwhile, the 31st and 11th MEU are doing circles in the Middle East because there's no clear guidance on what's happening. And on two carrier strike groups and 50,000 service members who don't know what is happening next. They're on hot standby because there's no diplomats in the room. There's no leadership in the room. There's no strategy in the room. It's just power, 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 win culture wars, white supremacy, white Christianity, all this stupid shit. That is the antithesis of what America says it's supposed to be. And the only difference between civilians sitting around and the military members who said, I'll go do it, is they had the guts to go serve. And they're relying on civilians, the leadership civilians, the freaking regular citizens to do and send them to the right way and do the right things. They don't mind going and doing dangerous things. What they do mind is it's actually not thought of as far as how serious this commitment is and their lives being put on the line for something that's not worth it. That's what's bothering me. None of this is worth it, but yet no one has the guts, whether in the Republican Party, whether in the White House, whether in the Pentagon, to sit there and say this is foolishness. But I'm going to give you some Pulp Fiction quotes to make you feel good about us having a military. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's
Literal
ridiculous.
Pulp Fiction quotes at a prayer breakfast. Bobby, can you bring your background, your experience as a Navy commander to this conversation? Because you've referenced the hardships that our sailors in particular are
Mhm.
going through. I believe the Lincoln is experiencing the longest deployment since Vietnam. And it's one thing to be at sea for 11 months and running out of rations and missing the birth of your child and the wedding of your
Mhm.
oldest kid when you know what the mission is. I've been there. I've turned around in the middle of, coming home to go back out. Granted, I was a pilot. I had an easier life than you guys, but I didn't com I did complain, but only because sailors complain. You gotta start worrying when they stop complaining, but deep down, we knew it was for a reason.
Yes.
We headed back out right after 9/11 because we knew there was a mission. How different is it when you add on top of an 11-month deployment the fact that the commander in chief has not explained to the American people, much less those who are risking their lives, what it's all for.
I can tell you that is the biggest travesty of this whole thing. We are old enough to remember, Ken, when military action was taken, President of the United States would address the nation from the Oval Office. It
Yes.
conveyed the seriousness of putting American lives at stake. We have not gotten that. We've gotten all these variety of excuses. Let me be very clear. The United States military, specifically the United States Naval Service, that's the Navy and the Marine Corps, can endure a lot for a long time. It's unbelievable how that culture creates this resiliency that the average person will never know. However, you cannot ask that resiliency to be played when you don't know why. If you go to the carrier strike groups, the amphibious readiness groups right now that are deployed to Fifth Fleet, the Middle East, and ask them why you're out here, you're going to get a different answer from every goddamn sailor and Marine. And they're going to be like,
Yeah.
you're going to have the ones who probably are doing the most work, those deck plate grunts sitting there say, because the president wants us out here. We don't know. Or Israel wants us out
Yeah.
here. We don't know. They'll have all these excuses. And this is what's being taken for granted. You're burning out the force. You're burning out
Yeah.
the force. Strategically, this is stupid, but tactically, you are limiting your capabilities and your response and obligations worldwide. I've never seen someone go out of their way to put this type of pressure on the military like they're superheroes. For example, you're in Ukraine. Zelensky offered to show us how to deal with these drone threats. And what did
Yeah.
we say, Ken? We said, hell no, because of pride and ego. And then you watch the same man that said no go and kiss butt to President Xi in China and get nothing in return in this last trip. And who's dealing with the stress of and the strain of that? The American service member sitting right now, deployed in limbo with no end in sight. This is what happens when you replace competency with goddamn loyalty. It's not a mistake that you, I'm going to be very blunt about this. You can't blame black people and you can't blame women about this because you eliminate all of them from the top part of the chain of command. You wipe them out. These are all white boys that look like what Hegseth wants. And look at the clown show that you're getting because diversity that he hates so much is not about skin color. It's about perspective. The perspective that skin color gave you over the course of 40 years in the United States military. Something tells me it's not a coincidence that Barack Obama could negotiate a deal with Iran, but Donald Trump can't. Do you see what I'm saying? You remove your tactically and strategically greatest asset, which is diversity of perspective and thought, because of your racist, white supremacy, xenophobic mindset. And who's paying the price?
Yeah.
All of us. All of us. And so I need people to understand on this Memorial Day when you go to Arlington, right? And this is the thing that's amazing. Originally, the deaths and the bodies that were laid there were segregated. But as America continued to evolve, they realized, holy crap, this ain't just about black folks or the Asian folks or the Japanese folks or this. It is about shared sacrifice. It's about shared sacrifice. The commitment to your nation will take different forms. But the sacrifice required of those who make that choice is pretty universal.
Yeah.
And Ken, you have donated the prime years of your life just like I have. And the thing is, we can talk about how it wore us out. We can talk about how our body is beating us up for those decisions to this day. But the thing is, it is a privilege to grow old after you have served your country
It is.
because you get to be the stewards of the sacrifice made by your shipmates that weren't able to come back. And that is why I am vocal about this. That's why I
Um,
refuse to sit down on this.
what do you tell younger sailors now, be they family members or kids of friends? What do you tell people thinking about joining the military today, or if they're in the military and
Mhm.
downrange? Because this is a tough one. We have this awful tradition as a country of blaming the military for the misdeeds and corruption and short-sightedness of its civilian leadership. We've
Yep.
done it before. We're not doing it yet, but I fear we could be heading in that direction. And it's look, I have grave, serious disappointments with some of the military leadership, the general and
Mhm.
flag officers now, but the
Mhm.
rank and file, they are
Mhm.
taking it on the chin, and they are weathering it stubbornly, and with such grace and honor. What do you what advice do you share though with those who are thinking about doing this these days?
It's that's something I've had to wrestle back and forth with, and I've come to this conclusion. Number one, if they are already in, I tell them to endure the things
Mhm.
that you learn the first days that you step foot in boot camp, the first days you put yourself in those yellow footprints at Paris Island or San Diego.
Right.
Those values don't change. Clown shows will come and go, but your values don't. And if you can look your battle buddy and your shipmate in the eye and see that, yeah, they're from a different background, but they care about you and your surviving, that should trump everything. That's number
Yep.
one. Number two, I have gone on a rant and I will do it again. The civilians, the American public, stop blaming the United States military for this. When George Washington turned over his sword in Annapolis at the
Mhm.
end of the Revolutionary War and went back to Mount Vernon, he set a precedent the world had never seen before. He said, despite me having this powerful military to just beat the number one military in the world, civilians need to dictate the fate of this country. That was never seen before. Okay. And it set precedents. That's why the United States has never had a military coup. That's why the United States will always subject itself to civilian representation, not military dictatorship. But with that comes a responsibility that you, the American public, need to understand. We, as the United States military, we are not some magical force, and we just don't up and overthrow civilian leadership because we don't like what's happening. Okay. We try to do what civilians tell us to do. Now, that's within the legality of war. Understand. But it is not General Kane's responsibility to tell Donald Trump, hey, we should not do this and make him do it. No, that is what you elected, people. Okay? It is hard enough for the military to go downrange and do its job. It is even harder when they are told to do missions by civilian leadership that does not jive with the will of the American people. That's what's
That's right.
happening here now. That's what's happening here. And so the generals and the admirals that put up the resistance to it have all been removed. Okay. You think it's a coincidence Admiral Halsey left Southcom when these boat
Yep.
strikes were stopping? No, he wanted no parts of it because he knew it was wrong. And every general and admiral you've seen that's been fired in the last 16 months have vocalized that this is wrong. So we are putting up the resistance. My question for you, America, is where the hell are y'all? Do you see what I'm saying? If you are not out there protesting on a regular basis, if you are not flooding the switchboard of the United States Congress, then it's on you. And most importantly, I will say this, it's starting to happen. You think it's a coincidence this week the GOP is walking back a lot of stuff? Because they're finally hearing from you.
Yeah.
They're finally hearing from you. And so, listen, the military is going to do what it can to stay within the bounds of legality, which is why, by the way, Hicks had fired all the JAG Corps officers when he came
That's
in,
right.
too. Okay.
That's right.
But understand, understand the military is doing its best with what it has been given. I keep talking to people who are still in, and they lament to me how hard this is. Why are they being put in this situation, etc. But what I'm telling you is, instead of the military saving you, America, you need to save your military. That's my
Yeah.
message for y'all on Memorial Day. They are willing to die and do whatever it takes to protect you. What are you going to do to save them?
Well, Bobby, I was going to end with a question about a call to action. First of all, we may need to make this a regular thing. The comments are lighting up with requests to have you back, so let's be in touch about that. But is
Mhm,
there maybe a symbolic or an emotional or moral action that people can take on this day? If if a protest isn't
mhm,
planned, which they're probably not, what can people do? A moment of devotion or something small to just pause and reflect on what you've articulated about the sacrifices made for all of us by those who haven't returned. And let's remind folks there is a
mhm.
difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day.
Veterans
Memorial
Day,
Day
that
isn't
part,
about me and Bobby.
right?
Memorial Day isn't about the buddies I flew with. It's the buddies I flew with who didn't come home.
Yeah.
What can people do before we let you go, Bobby, on this day to remember and memorialize that difference?
There are two things that I would ask people to do that takes less than 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes. Number one, I humbly ask you to go online, Google, and read a Medal of Honor winner
Oh,
citation. And
yes.
and try to do it where it's close to where you're from, whether it's in your state, your city, just somewhere close to you. So just type in Medal of Honor winner and then like place of birth, your hometown, and see what comes up and read about the extraordinary action that person did. And you can be like, holy crap, they're from here and they did this and you didn't know. That's number one. Number two, I want everybody who's listening to this to look up the next meeting that their city council or county commission has and just go and attend it. Just sit there.
Mhm.
You don't have to say anything. Just watch how your government is supposed to
Hmm.
work because these people that made these sacrifices did so you can go do that, to be an active participant in your community where your voice is heard. That's all. Nothing serious. 10 minutes of your time today. Have a great time, have a barbecue, sit down, relax, and enjoy the company of your friends and family. But think about that sacrifice that that person that you read about has, and think about how that family never got to do that anymore, right? And just then take that forward and go sit down and watch your elected leaders conduct business. You may be surprised how you look at things after sitting there and watching.
Yeah. Bobby, that is a beautiful note to end on and a moving call to action, really. Let's do this again. Thanks
Yeah.
everyone for joining. Please click on Bobby's Chiron and subscribe to its Anchor Watch, right? That's your
Yes.
Substack, Bobby.
Mhm.
And I think I messed up and I didn't broadcast this on Midas Plus as well, but we'll get the brothers to post it up there. Thanks everyone for joining. And um, take that moment to reflect.
Mhm.
I tried to paste a link, but I'm sure someone will be able to find it to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society Foundation. That's a great
Mhm.
place to go get these citations, and I'm going to go do that as soon as I have time this evening. Bobby,
Yep.
thank you, sir.
Stay safe, Ken. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.